Kaiser.
Morning, sir.
Morning.
Do you swear or affirm to
I do.
Okay, your name is Dick Kaiser?
Richard Kaiser.
Richard Kaiser, on how you spell your last name, Richard?
K-A-I-S-E-R.
Gotcha, sir. Okay, thank you. Okay, Bill, you may proceed.
Yeah. Should I call you Dick or Richard? Okay. And to give your address for the record here.
1562 East Painted Colt Loop, Tucson, near Prince and Mountain.
Could you also just sort of give a little capsule summary of some of your political activities to the judge in Tucson and otherwise?
All right. I'm a native Wisconsin resident.
From where? What city?
Well, I grew up in Milwaukee.
Madison, so we're...
Well, I graduated from the University of Wisconsin in Madison. I also have a master's degree in curriculum instruction from University of Wisconsin, Milwaukee. I, for the last several years, have been living in both northern Wisconsin and Door County, and a resident here in the city. My politics, I have been an activist for over 40 years, 45 years, starting as a school teacher, being active in a nascent teachers union, teaching and working as a union steward in that position. I got very active in professionalizing teachers, moved on to training teachers for a number of years, became a school administrator, and felt that the positions that the school board was taking were not correct, and became public in groups expressing that. I exercised my First Amendment rights at every opportunity when I felt things weren't going right. So I feel very comfortable in the experiences I've had, including most recently being co-chair of Democracy for America here in Tucson, the Tucson chapter. And we were involved in numerous activities, public activities. And when I heard about what was happening in the world and common people were being, the way I would characterize it, bludgeoned by a system that wasn't working in their behalf, last a year ago approximately for Arab Spring, I knew it was coming to this country and I wanted to be a part of it. I own my own business. I was a school administrator for 18 years prior to that. Successfully had a business for 13 years and retired at age 65, 6 years ago.
Did you yourself receive a citation as part of the Occupy event?
I did. It has been dismissed, but I did, and I did it deliberately. I have not been, Mr. Croto mentioned about as many as 100 occupiers, but the actual number of day occupiers is considerably larger than that. Now, they're not down there every day. I'm not down there every day, but we have varying degrees of commitment to being there. And one of the ways we committed was to take a citation, deliberately going to the park after 10:30, knowing that the officers would be there to stand and be counted and accept a citation on behalf of the First Amendment. That's what we felt, not felt, we continue to feel, is an overriding concern about the movement, more broadly speaking. The underpinning is the First Amendment and our right to speak up.
Have you had a sort of a special involvement with one of the working groups with Occupy Tucson?
Well, I've been involved with several of them. Initially, it was the welcome table, because that's where we met the public. The people would come down, strangers, they were strangers to us, we were strangers to them. They were coming down to say, what is this all about? Or how can I help? Or give me more information about something, or what's going on tomorrow or today. I'm down here at 3, is there something going on? We would tell them what the schedule was. We would engage with them on the whole matter of the occupation movement broadly and also specific to Tucson, because the occupation movement is a local movement. It's broad in its geography, but it's targeted to the communities. We've had events occur here that could have never occur anywhere else regarding TUSD and the Mexican American Studies program. That was unique to Tucson, but we're also involved in protesting bank actions that have put people out on the street from their homes. And so that welcome table was sort of a spot where people could then connect. They would join working groups, they would start attending general assemblies. They might be 24/7 campers, occupiers, that needed to talk to somebody. They were thinking about becoming part of it. They wanted to know that it would be a good fit for them. Not for a place to flop, but a place to engage, even with their limited means. If homelessness was a part of their life, they needed to also know that they could express themselves politically in that environment. There were people who had tents and wanted to be there, but we're not going to be there every night, but they were going to be there a lot of the time because they believed in the 24-hour, 7-day-a-week occupation. They believed in the concept, and they wanted to be active as much as they could. So that was the first part that I connected with. And, you know, I can't say it was a life-altering experience, but I met people there that I will remember forever. And their own stories, because they wanted to hear ours, but they also had a story to tell about their own plight or their own need to express themselves. But then I moved on to a variety of committees, donations committee, not committee, but working group, which I felt was an integral part of it because we needed funds to operate. Also the legislative committee, which became very important as time went on. And I could go on in some length about particular things in that committee. And there were others that I've said. Many of these working groups do not have working group members. There is a fluidity within it. If someone joins it and they stay with it, as long as they're constructively participating in it, they can do something to move the process forward, and they may back off later on. So, you know, there isn't a listing. We may have our working groups, but we don't have names for all of them.
Let me ask you, you mentioned the donations thing. Does having a presence in that park 24 hours a day have a positive effect on donations?
Absolutely. At the beginning, we were getting donations from every corner of, I can actually say this, every corner of Tucson's community. Money was coming in. From those who had very little to those of significant means were making donations. And a lot of it had, I would say, to the extent I can reflect on it, a lot of it had to do with the fact we were there. There was this energy being focused in one place. And it was there. It's like a heartbeat. It's there. We're establishing a beachhead, if you will. We're saying you can't cross this line. It's not private property, it's our property. It's everybody's property. It's the 99%, it's everybody's property. And we have a right to be here because the Constitution says that. And people responded. I mean, we're talking about people who don't have money issues in their life at all. They're taken care of in one respect or other. But they knew this was important because they followed what's been happening in the world and in the special place that we are in the United States in our history of free speech.
Dick, you were involved with, I think, a legislative initiative. I, early before we started, made some remarks to the judge about that. Could you tell the court what that involved?
Yeah. I think the way to start with it is that because there's no template, there's no game book for something like this, things occur, they just sort of bubble up. And so people bring their own unique creativity to this situation, and as problems develop, such as regular citations and being a distraction to the issues that we had in mind, not that we weren't ready to deal with them directly, but they were a distraction and they were a weight around the movement. So the question was, how can we respond constructively to this? And the decision was, we need to go to the elected officials in the community and express ourselves with them and find out what they thought. And so we established a legislative working group. And we met separately to sort of hash out what would be our approach. And early on, we actually had council members attending occupation events. They, of their own volition, were coming down. In some cases, more than once. I think all but one city council member actually appeared. So we took that tack and we met and we decided, let's go meet with them. Well, early on, one member, I could mention her name, I guess, Regina Romero, actually submitted a proposal to the council, and they had a working group session on it. They ended up voting on it, and I don't have the specifics in front of me, but it basically attempted to codify our existence in a park, that we would have that right. And the vote occurred, and there were only 6 votes in it, and came out 3-3. So there was no resolution on it. We continued to move forward. We felt if we could get 3, we could get possibly other members. So we worked through that legislative political process. We got to a certain point, and we thought we were going to be able to work something out. We got closer. We knew the concept of a free zone of assembly, free assembly zone, possibly in a park, would have merit. We had met with 4 or 5, I can't remember. I think we met, I didn't meet with all of them. We met with 4 of the representatives. They were all positively disposed to this concept. The new mayor was met with. He had some reservations about his term, and I'll say it because I think it's been mentioned more often than anything else he's probably said, is he had problems with after 10:30. Nothing good happens in a park after 10:30. So we knew we had that hurdle that we'd have to deal with.
You know, you're addressing something that's dear to my heart. What the mayor said, I save people in our trials for people that unfortunately are on their own walking in DUIs, and nothing good happens in this town after 10 o'clock, I think.
Yeah. Well, he's picked up on your...
That's it? Yeah. I don't think so.
So, yeah, just an opinion. But we were at the point where we saw what our next challenge was going to be, that we'd have to somehow convince the mayor that we'd work something out. And ideas were floated like maybe we could get a conditional kind of a thing going where it would be a 3-month permit to do this, and if we were on good behavior. So we were thinking about other alternatives. But as we were moving forward, our legal team, because we have a legal working group made up of attorneys who are members of the bar in Arizona, and they were having problems with these discussions that were going on because the courts were already engaged in this, and now we were working, in a sense, the other side of the street. And is this now going to cause some problems? We took their advice, strongly given to us, to back off. And at that point, which was a number of weeks ago, we've, in a sense, gone quiet on that initiative. We've subsequently picked up another initiative, which is to try to work on corporate personhood, which is one of the underpinnings of the occupation movement. Not forgetting what our other goal was, to be able to be in the park freely without encumbrances by law, as long as we were behaving all other laws. But it's been sidetracked. And I would say that that committee has some long-lasting, that working group has some long-lasting energy, and we feel that it's one of the most legitimate ways we can pursue many of our goals, is to work with the existing structure of the community.
Incidentally, you mentioned some lawyers. That wasn't me part of that.
No, you weren't there.
I was going to ask that.
Yeah, I think that's probably all I have.
I want anything.
This one?
You said, sir, that your group deemed the park to be, and find this quote, you please correct me, our property, is that correct?
Not in relation
Is
to,
that what you said, sir? Our property?
I wasn't making reference to our group. It was as the city is our property.
And I'll ask you the same question I asked Mr. Crowe too. You don't know how many people were discouraged from using the park by the presence of the occupiers, do you?
No,
Okay. You would agree with me that it's likely there were some?
I have no way of knowing.
Okay. So you don't agree with that?
I don't have an opinion of that. I would only surmise without going into, philosophizing about it. Something
Sir,
I don't
you've
know.
been philosophizing here for 20 minutes. I think we're A-okay with you doing that.
Okay. Well, I would have to assume somebody else may have wanted to use the park, but I have no knowledge of any of those people in that. So it's an assumption on my part that it's possible somebody was kept away.
Another for you.